Hey guys, it's Up Till Down Till Dare, and basically I've been a GM for about 6 months-ish now, which I know is not long at all compared to other GMs who have a lot more experience under their belt. However, I will preface this all, and there is a reason I'm saying all this, by stating that I have, actually, been practicing being a GM every single day for those 6 months, looking up tutorials and bettering my craft. And the reason I bring this up is to kind of give a little bit of idea that I have a little bit of D&D experience under my belt, but obviously some of these GMs do not, or some of these players just have no actual idea what they're doing. Anyway, because I'm a bandwagoner and completely unoriginal, I thought it would be fun to read some RPG horror stories. The actual reason behind this being that I really just wanted to go on this Reddit and see what was up, and all my reactions are going to be genuine. I have not read through this at all. I kind of skimmed a sentence or two to make sure it wasn't completely boring, but besides that, I have no idea what I'm getting into, and I've been staring at this screen for about 10 minutes now trying to get this first take to work, so let's get right into it. I stopped the character from doing that. I'm a part of an ongoing gaming group with a few regulars at my game store. Started as Adventurers League and split off from that. Not important. What is important is that this game store is supposed to be a family-friendly environment. Also important, one of the guys in this group has a couple of ongoing problems. Okay, so this is already not boding well. He has a tendency to stop other players from taking any action unless it's the one he would have done. Like, whenever a character does something basic, like threaten an NPC or pick a lock or check for traps, he'll say something like, "I quickly stopped the character from doing that." I definitely have some experience with a situation like this, but we'll keep it going. 2, he makes very inappropriate jokes whenever an NPC is in a compromising situation. Like, he will try to make his character kiss NPCs out of the blue, joke about how he wants to lead an NPC who is hostage around by the collar, etc. Now, jokes like that may have a place in some games, but really only when everyone at the table has already said they're okay with it, and not in a game store that has rules about keeping things family friendly. So tonight we were playing Descent into Avernus. We were interrogating some cultists, and we had taken their robes to use as disguises as we explored their compound. Immediately that guy starts asking about how these cultists look, if they're old or young, etc. I'm a little weirded out because it's not especially relevant, but okay, he may just be wanting to know if the robes will be the right size for our characters. So then he says, as we end up at the end of the interrogation, he slaps the younger female cultist on the butt. Instinctively, I interject, "I stopped the character from doing that." Fortunately, the DM also tells the guy that this character is not allowed to do that. I pass that guy a note saying that he's making me uncomfortable, and his only response is to give me an upset look. I show the note to the DM, and the DM says he will talk to that guy later about his inappropriate behavior. Any updates? Any updates? Any updates? Okay, so it doesn't look like there was actually any update to the story. It was a little bit shorter than I expected, but that's what I get for just kind of skimming through. But now that I can actually take a thorough look at it, I will say that I definitely have some grievances with the situation. Generally speaking, I dislike a couple of things in the situation. For the most part, whenever it comes to doing something in a family-friendly environment, you need to understand that there are going to be children walking around. Obviously, that's the whole purpose of it. It's for family. So doing something like that, and D&D is loud, so I doubt this guy was really whispering, especially if they had a large group at this environment, just explicitly stating out loud that I'm going to slap this person on the butt, and who knows if this was actually dumbed down and censored for Reddit, when it could have been something more gratuitous. So that's definitely a big no-no for me. Other than that, this guy just seems uncomfortable. Whenever it comes to enslavement of characters that are younger, and it's just not great to do. It's never a good look to do as a character. As a GM though, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to make sure that everybody in your group is comfortable with what you're doing, as well as make sure you do it with some finesse, as in making sure that the fact that there are younger women wearing collars isn't a good thing, and it's not there to fulfill a fantasy. Okay, so this one is Neutral Stupid Hurts the Party and the World. This was the first full-length game of D&D I was a part of. Background: we were all thrust into a potential matchup between Vecna and Agnarak, eternal enemies whose colliding powers would threaten the fabric of reality and the multiverse. So yeah, big stakes at hand. Now, we had a week before a powerful NPC would try to spark the conflict by taking the brunt of the damage and allowing us to be in an advantageous position. NPC also believed that they at least had a chance against both. We already spent 2 days getting powerful weapons of legend to help us power up for the fight. The last item took us to Avernus to find armor, but the enemy opened the fight with a fear effect that compelled nearly the whole party to run until we were out of eyesight. On an open field, basically making the barbarian solo the fight and barely win. Now, this is really hard to read with very few commas in between and semicolons. We then looked at the list of items and deemed the way we would go about finding them were now. That just doesn't sound right. But I'll continue anyway. Shadowfell, Warlock's item. Fireplane, can't remember whose item. Waterplane, my character's item. Feywild, Druid's item, because the Feywild messes with time. Epic boss fight. Oh, okay. So this is basically the list of items that they were all going to get, and then the boss fight. Okay, I don't know if that was obvious beforehand, but that was definitely confusing me. The cast for the day: DM is DM, me is me, Kyle is neutral stupid. The session started with us planning on where to go next. See above. Overall, the barbarian wanted to go back to the prime material plane and heal, and we agreed because he had 1 health and was exhausted with a capital E. After the rest of the party had difficulty reading the plane shift scrolls, not sure why the DM even had us make checks, but then I wouldn't be typing this. The druid said I can just cast the spell. We said fine. We didn't trust the druid's intentions. As the druid cast the spell, the DM said, "Where do you go?" And Kyle looked straight at him and said, "To the Feywild." No, that's too good of a voice. That's too epic for him. That's a manly. What's my most annoying D&D voice? I think I got it. "Where do you go?" And Kyle looked straight at him and said, "To the Feywild." The party was in shock, so not many reactions other than giving the DM looks of concern. The DM then described the Feywild to our characters, and we all wanted to kill the druid immediately. But for some reason, we did not attack, and the DM did not let us retcon it. One thing I should mention about Kyle's character is that he was playing a true neutral druid who only cared about himself. This guy only wanted a quiet forest to live in. That was his whole ambition. To be fair, he was supposed to be the joke character of the group. So with the DM not doing anything and no one in the party wanting to take action, we rolled with it and rested in the Feywild before heading out to get the druid's item. After we did some investigating, we found there was a giant pit that was slowly expanding. We discovered that some soul emperor or something came in and stole the item along with the local Fey goddess, taking them into this expanding hole. We then decided to go into the hole and find the emperor, the goddess, and the item, only to find ourselves in the Shadowfell. To be clear, the first place on the list that we as a party agreed on would have taken us to both the druid's item and the warlock's item without ever interacting with the Feywild. Now to skip over the Shadowfell adventures, as that includes a story of the DM turning my character into a narrative tool by killing me, but that's a story for another day. We then returned to the prime material, hoping to the gods that no time had passed as we returned to find... Jeez Louise. Punctuation, commas, apostrophes. We then returned to the prime material, hoping to the gods that no time had passed. We returned to find what was a bustling city now turned into an oversized sand dune. As a week had passed for the day we spent in the Feywild when... This is not even... Oh my... Why would you put a period in the middle of a sentence? Oh my god. Comma! Put a comma there. Or a semicolon. Or something. Whatever. Oh, I'm getting more mad at the person that wrote this than the actual DM or the druid. As a week had passed for the day we spent in the Feywild when we only had 5 days left to find items. This caused the powerful NPC to fight Agnarak and Vecna alone and died in the process. Also, while we were away, Agnarak killed Vecna by finding and destroying his phylactery, becoming a god in the process. For those who don't know, Agnarak, he made Vecna a lich and helped him become a god because he likes making gods for fun. And you know, I've already stopped and judged the grammar. I'm moving on. Sentence structure and all that good stuff. After killing Vecna, Agnarak began to take over the prime material plane, and his first target was the city by dropping a desert on it. Just clarifying how massively screwed we were. And when we brought this up to Kyle's character simply said, okay, and? He didn't kill me or the Force. There is neutral and thinking about your well-being above most everything else, and then there's just being evil and not caring that your self-serving actions just killed thousands of people and left other party members without super power-ups in fighting against a god. Okay, that took me way too long to read. So grammatical errors aside, for this one, don't really see it as that horrible. I think kinda everybody in this situation. I think Kyle screwed up slightly because his whole objective was to just kind of screw over the party, which is why he had them go into the Feywilds in the first place. I get that it was basically campaign ending because of him, which is definitely not something I'm going to try to defend, but I think the way OP went about it was just kind of horribly described. Basically, it sounds like OP was really looking forward to getting their weapons, but unfortunately, I don't think they were actually able to get to it yet because they just went to the Shadowfell. So they weren't able to get all those cool fun abilities, which I understand, but it feels like they kind of just blew it a little bit out of proportion. I think the DM making the character's death in Shadowfell kind of a plot device is really, really bad. Obviously, that's something you don't want to do unless it's with an NPC. For the most part, you want to leave your characters alive and try to surround the plot hooks around them, but not make them the plot hook. Looking at the other perspective, even if the character didn't die, let's say they were secretly a god, that just kind of makes it seem like favoritism. So really, unless you can actually find a good reason as to why, maybe background or maybe some item that they have, it's not good to make a character the plot hook. It just doesn't really work out. The adventures should already be the plot hooks of the overarching campaign. They're the ones that change the fate of the world that's around them. So to kind of simplify that, it's really not great. Though I really got to give props to the DM because it sounds like he didn't want to cuck over the Warlock, because the Warlock was the first on the list to actually get the item, so it sounded like whenever Kyle decided to go into the Feywilds, that he decided more or less to put the Warlock's item in there so that he can at least still get the item first, because that was the plan. And then the Druid gets his item, and then you can kind of rearrange how the structure goes. So I'm going to assume that he was trying to kind of help out the situation. So I really don't like OP's stance where basically they were saying, oh, well, if we went to Shadowfell, we would have gotten the Druid's weapon and the Warlock's weapon. Because I think the GM was just trying to help out both players in that situation and make them both happy so they both get their weapons, because you're in the Feywild, which the Druid favors, and Shadowfell, you can get the Warlock item. So it works out. But with that being said, I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I know that I'm not the best reader right now, and I intend to kind of work on this craft like I do GMing and try to get better at it. So I hope that maybe in the future you guys can come to enjoy this content a lot more. If you have any interesting stories for r/Reddit, they don't necessarily have to be RPG stories. That's just the one I have the most interest in, and I feel I can actually talk about with the most, that I feel like I can talk about with at least some experience under my belt. Go ahead and leave a comment down below. If you like the video, do all that good stuff. I really don't care about getting popular, but this is fun. This is fun to talk about, so I hope I can do this again sometime, and hopefully this isn't just one of those projects I give up halfway through. So yeah, thank you guys for watching one more time, and I'll see you guys in the next one. This is I need an ending. Oh man, I kind of want to do it. All right. This is up tilt, down tilt, dare, resetting neutral, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later. We then looked at the list of items and deemed the way we would go about... That's my Persona 5 notification noise. If you haven't played Persona 5, I highly recommend doing so. Oh hey, Fitbit is up 5.1% today in the stock market.